common bonds. Pope Francis reaches out to the Orthodox community during his trip to Cyprus. Traveling with the Holy Father. Our Vatican Analyst offers new information about the apostolic visit. Jobs report. President Joe Biden defends his administration's handling of the economy. And crisis averted. Congress prevents a government shutdown. Why the move is only temporary. On EWTN News Nightly for Friday, December 3rd, 2021. Thank you so much for being with us tonight on this feast of St. Francis Xavier. I'm Tracy Sable. Pope Francis is spending his first full day in Cyprus. It is part of an apostolic trip that will also take him to Greece. Both countries are a majority Orthodox, and today the Holy Father underlined the common bonds between the Catholic and Orthodox churches.
Siamo chiamati a rinnovare la fraternità.
At a Mass in the capital of Cyprus, the Holy Father highlighted the fraternity shared by Catholics and Orthodox. Pope Francis also met with Orthodox leaders and then later held a prayer service with migrants. The two-nation trip continues this weekend. The Holy Father returns to Rome on Monday. Joining us now from Cyprus is Andrea Gagliarducci, Vatican Analyst for EWTN News. Andrea, great to see you. Thank you so much for your time today. Can you talk about maybe some of the highlights of the Holy Father's trip so far?
Well, I'd say we had two big highlights. The first highlight was the meeting the meeting with the diplomatic corps. Just when he arrived, he met all the diplomatic corps, all the civil society. It was the second speech of his trip, and he also addressed the crisis in Cyprus. You know that Cyprus has been under occupation, as the Cypriots say, from Turkey on the northern part. There is a self-proclaimed republic in the northern part. And the Pope mildly spoke about that, giving also the highlight of the Holy See diplomacy on the issue, which is just have dialogue, which was a good speech in comparison with that of the president, because the president was very harsher on the issue. And then there is a second highlight, and it's been today when the Pope met with migrants. There was an ecumenical prayer with migrants. 12 of them will come to Italy, accompanied thanks to an agreement between the Secretary of State of the Vatican, Italy, and Community of Sant'Egidio. So the Pope addressed the issue of the migrants. This is something very dear to him because the Pope is going to meet migrants again the day after tomorrow. So these are the two highlights of these meetings. Obviously, we had the two masses, a divine liturgy and a mass with Maronite community and Latin community, because in Cyprus you have both. Maronites are majority, but the Latin Patriarchate is under Jerusalem, so it's kind of important. Cyprus is Holy Land, even if people doesn't think about that.
Yeah, and as we just heard, the Holy Father is really spending a lot of time with members of the Orthodox faith. How are the Orthodox responding?
The Orthodox are responding pretty well, I'd say. We had this meeting today, and this meeting was with the Orthodox Archbishop Chrysostomos of Cyprus. It's been a very good meeting. Obviously, there was the speech by Chrysostomos was pretty harsh, pretty strong on the issues of the Turkish situation. But on the other hand, this dialogue is ongoing. And then there will be this meeting in Greece with Archbishop of Athens, Hieronymus. And the Pope entertains very good relations with both of them. I see a broader extent of the broader effort of the Holy See to reach out to Orthodox countries. If you think about that, all the Pope's latest trip in Europe were mostly in countries with an Orthodox majority. So there is a need to reach out for them, and that's a way to bring ecumenical reconciliation throughout Europe.
And before I let you go, Andrea, do you know what's on the agenda for the Holy Father this weekend?
Well, yes, tomorrow the Holy Father is leaving to Greece, so we're going to Greece with the Holy Father. The Pope will have the usual meetings in the beginning of the trip, so civil authorities, president, prime minister, and so on. And obviously, as I said, the Archbishop of Athens, the Orthodox Archbishop of Athens, and that will be very important because Orthodoxy in Greece is the majority. It's very important. There are also sometimes tensions between Orthodox and Catholic community. And so it's important, this meeting, to pacify the situation. Then the day after tomorrow, the Pope will go back to Lesbos. You might remember that the Pope went to Lesbos. It's this island in Greece where there are a lot of refugee camps because it's on the route, Mediterranean route for refugees. The Pope went there back in 2016. He's going back there to go to refugee camp, to have a speech, to deliver a speech, to see the situation, how the situation developed. In the meantime, there was also a fire in one of these camps. And so that will be an important gesture of the Pope. And then, well, the trip is almost over because on Monday, the Pope will be back in Rome.
Well, Andrea, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Andrea Gagliarducci, Vatican Analyst for EWTN News. Thank you again.
Thank you.
COVID-19 has claimed the life of the apostolic nuncio to the European Union. Archbishop Aldo Giordano died yesterday at the age of 67. He had been hospitalized in intensive care for the past few weeks. President Joe Biden says families are anxious about COVID-19 and the cost of living. He made those remarks in a speech today as he addressed the November jobs report. America's employers added 210,000 jobs, the lowest monthly gain in nearly a year. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen.
Tracy, good evening to you. President Joe Biden also said in his speech today that a happier and brighter new year is ahead and that millions of jobs have been created since he first took office. Now, he also said today more vaccines were administered yesterday than any day in the past 6 months. Yet, the pandemic goes on and on.
President Joe Biden tells anxious Americans,
I want you to know I hear you. It's not enough to know that we're making progress. You need to see it and feel it in your own lives, around the kitchen table, in your checkbooks.
The president, battling a cold that he picked up from a grandchild, not COVID, says just about every country is grappling with high prices as they fight the pandemic, adding things will get better.
As the world economy continues to come back to life, the more price pressures are going to ease as things begin to move.
The U.S. unemployment rate did fall to 4.2%, but inflation, high gas prices, uncertainty over the COVID-19 Omicron variant, and worker shortages remain front and center.
Not impressed with today's jobs report is Republican Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, who tweeted, prediction, 550,000 jobs. Reality, 210,000 jobs. Joe Biden's economy is a disaster, and Democrats are doubling down on their failed tax and spend policies. Also today, the Biden administration updated the National Action Plan to combat human trafficking. President Biden calls the issue a stain on our society's conscience. And a senior administration official tells EWTN News Nightly faith-based groups play a very helpful role by providing services to trafficking victims both in the United States and throughout the world. And during Advent, as the joy of Christmas Day gets closer,
1, Merry Christmas!
President Biden celebrated the season last night with the lighting of the national Christmas tree.
And tonight there are fears that Russia could soon invade Ukraine. The U.S. has threatened the Kremlin with the toughest sanctions yet if it attacks. And President Biden told reporters today he could make things very, very difficult for Russian President Vladimir Putin. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Congress has averted a government shutdown. Both the House and Senate passed a funding bill to keep federal agencies open until February 18th. It also provides some $7 billion for Afghanistan refugees, but it is the vaccine mandate provisions in the bill that has Republicans balking. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales reports.
Criticism continues up on Capitol Hill over President Biden's vaccine mandates for businesses. Senate Republicans were threatening to hold up government funding. They say if it continues, millions of Americans will be out of work.
I don't want an economic shutdown. That a federal vaccine mandate is going to shut down this economy across the country. It's going to be hundreds of thousands of jobs in Kansas. West Virginia is going to lose 300,000 jobs. Arizona, over 1 million jobs if this vaccine mandate goes forward.
The Senate didn't pass the amendment, but Republicans will get another chance next week. Republicans introduced a standalone bill intended to overrule workplace vaccine mandates scheduled to take effect January 4th. So far, they've been blocked by federal courts. Republicans have picked up the support of a key Democrat, Senator Joe Manchin. He said in a statement, quote, "Let me be clear. I do not support any government vaccine mandate on private businesses. That's why I've co-sponsored and will strongly support a bill to overturn the federal government vaccine mandate for private businesses. I have long said we should incentivize, not penalize, private employers whose responsibility it is to protect their employees from COVID-19. House Republicans are worried as well.
I think right now what's having the effect by these mandates, though, is causing challenges to our firemen, to our healthcare system and others from the standpoint of it's becoming a job issue as well.
Minority Leader Mitch McConnell told me that he hopes to gain support from a handful of Democrats to prevent President Biden's vaccine mandates to continue. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
This week's Supreme Court hearing on Mississippi's pro-life law is already having an impact on a similar lawsuit involving Tennessee's heartbeat law. Late Wednesday, a federal court said that it would vacate its temporary stay and will schedule a new hearing before the full court. A Catholic priest in Ohio has pleaded guilty to sexual abuse of a minor from 1988 to 1991. A plea agreement will imprison Jeff Drew for 7 years. He must also register for life as a sex offender. The Archdiocese of Cincinnati will seek his removal from the clergy. Coming up, coronavirus crisis. One country announces a new lockdown. Who's being forced to stay home? A Nigerian priest seeks international protection for the faithful in his country. Father Bako Francis Aweyesu tells Aid to the Church in Need that his region is at risk from Muslim tribal herders. Authorities in Nigeria are separately confirming his warning. Fulani bandits are blamed for killing more than 4,000 Christians this year, including at least 20 priests. Father Bako and 10 of his parishioners were their captives earlier this year. In Portugal, the lay leader for the church's Committee on Child Sex Abuse is assuring anonymity so that victims will come forward to share their stories without fear. The independent six-person committee includes a former Supreme Court judge, a social worker, and psychiatrists. Germany reinstates lockdowns for its unvaccinated citizens. German Chancellor Angela Merkel announced the restrictions yesterday and called the lockdowns, quote, an act of national solidarity. The country saw 70,000 new COVID cases in a 24-hour period. And joining me now is AC Wimmer, editor-in-chief of CNA Deutsch. AC, welcome back. Always great to see you. As you well know, Germany wasn't the first European country to reimpose lockdowns. Austria did it last week, and of course now Germany has followed suit. What more can you tell us about the lockdowns for the unvaccinated, and also how could it affect the faithful?
That's a great question, Tracy. It really depends on each diocese. So everyone who's vaccinated and who isn't vaccinated, whether they've been cured of corona and can show the certificate for it or not, needs to find out with their local parish at the moment. I've done so with my kids, some of which have not been vaccinated yet because they're too young. Others have had some sort of bug and we didn't know what it was. And that's the situation for all the faithful. But in particular, those services that are considered important outside of the religious sphere, such as dealing with the elderly, the frail, the sick, there are really compulsory rules now in place that mean you must be vaccinated if you're working with those people. And if you end up going to church, that you have to wear a mask even when you're singing and have an appropriate distance, social distancing in place when you're entering church.
Yeah, and it also seems that Chancellor Merkel seems to support vaccine mandates. Do you think that a vaccine mandate will happen in Germany's future? And also curious, will there be any exemptions, religious exemptions?
Well, strikingly, Angela Merkel and also Cardinal Reinhard Marx of Munich and Freising have spoken out in favor of some sort of mandatory vaccination regime, which, as I'm sure many of your viewers will know, might possibly run counter to what the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith, the Vatican, has said, which says there is an imperative to help other people, but at the end of the day, there is also freedom of conscience when it comes to vaccination. The German federal government, the Bundestag, the parliament, they all agree that they will have to make a decision at some stage very soon. And the Ethics Council, which is kind of in place to advise and make a recommendation, has said it will do so before the end of the year, so in the coming weeks. As to whether mandatory vaccinations will then happen, we'll have to wait and see. I suspect they might well be in place.
And AC, I'm curious, how are the German people reacting to all of this news?
Well, I was expecting a bit more protest, to be honest. It seems to be quite on the hush. German society is very much consensus-based, and there has been a very concerted, if you like, campaign in the media and in the public sphere to ensure people understand why the government want this to happen, why vaccination does make sense when it comes to dealing, in their views, in their eyes, with what is a necessary medical procedure.
Well, AC, and some other news I want to turn to right now. Pro-life advocates have won the right to appeal a ban on prayer vigils in a German region. What more can you tell us about that?
This is a massively important case, but on the other hand, as to whether it sets a precedent, Tracy, we'll have to wait and see. Basically, what's happened is a court has, as you said, granted the right of appeal for a group that belongs to the American initiative 40 Days for Life, that were holding a silent prayer vigil outside of an abortion advisory center. In Germany, if you want to procure an abortion, God forbid, you have to go through a process where you are advised about what your options are and what can happen. And outside of these centers, you may find Christians and others perhaps holding a silent protest, offering help to those seeking assistance, etc. Rarely, unfortunately, is this met with anything but controversy. And in this particular instance, what we're seeing is that even a silent prayer may be something that a court will not grant the right to uphold. But as I said, it's a decision that has yet to be made. What we do know, however, and this is perhaps even much more concerning, Tracy, is the fact that the incoming government of Germany, the federal government, wants to ban these pavement nuisances, as they call them, altogether.
Well, AC, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate your analysis.
Thank you kindly.
Up next, vulnerable people. How one aid group is bringing people to safety in Afghanistan. The humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan continues as the harsh winter months approach. Food shortages and a lack of heat are now major problems, and there are still ongoing rescue efforts to get people out of the country. Yesterday, we caught up with a Catholic aid organization that is working tirelessly to do just that. Joining us now is Jason Jones, president of the Vulnerable People Project and host of the Jason Jones Show, and Mustafa Assady, director of the Vulnerable People Project. Gentlemen, thank you both so much for being here. We appreciate it. Jason, I want to start with you. We've talked to you over the past few weeks, checking in with you as recent as just last week. Can you fill us in on the progress that's been made in just the past week? I know you brought up some countries that were helping Christians.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having us on. EWTN has been with us every step of the way, and it actually has played a key role in some people being evacuated. In fact, somebody who saw us on your program the first time I was on just landed in the United States yesterday, so that was a big day. So we've had countries step up like Brazil, giving visas for Christians. Another country has stepped up to allow us, they've given us landing rights so we can bring people there, but we only have 90 days to find a place to resettle them. And but the real challenge now is we've been overwhelmed with requests. We've created a system to deliver food, wood, coal, and propane for people because it's getting very cold. We have Christians in safe houses all over Afghanistan. It's getting very cold. So that's become the big challenge for us now. We're still continuing to look for ways to evacuate people to neighboring countries, to resettle them permanently once we get them to neighboring countries. But the UN has predicted over 1 million people dying of starvation this year in Afghanistan. And by God's grace, so many of these Christian communities now are connected with us. And so we have this big burden of making sure that they have food and that they have heat, and that they have a roof over their heads.
Yeah, I want to talk to you, Mustafa, a little bit more about that. You know, we're hearing these stories. It's so bad with a famine that families are actually selling their children, their daughters. Can you talk a little bit more about that and that situation for heat and shelter as well?
Sure. That is happening all over Afghanistan, and people are desperate for food, and when they have multiple kids, they want to make sure to feed at least some of them, and they think that by selling them, they will guarantee food for that child as well as the remaining of their family members, but it's just affecting them all.
It's a really heartbreaking situation. It's hard to wrap your mind around that. And we've been hearing so much of these numbers kind of fluctuating, how many people are still in Afghanistan trying to get out, whether it's American citizens or friends of the U.S. Jason, do you know? Is there a number of people, what is the exact number of people we're trying to get out here?
Mustafa is really kind of a math whiz, and we've been trying to put this together. There's tens of thousands of Christians right now in hiding. Right now, they're very cold. Right now, they're very hungry, and right now, they're fearing for their life. Just last week, I was at my son's swim meet, and I get a ding on my phone, and it was a thank you letter that Mustafa had forwarded to me from young women that we had helped evacuate to a neighboring country, thanking us, saying that they had given up hope, that God would spare their life. They were just praying that God would preserve their chastity and their honor.
And really, we talk about the power of prayer and how important that is. Can we talk about this, especially in this situation? I know people want to know what they can do to help. A prayer is one of them.
Yeah, we've had a lot of miracles, like miracle after miracle after miracle. And so we need everyone to keep praying. That's something all of us can do, to be thoughtful of them, for them to know. And Mustafa shares, if you can share a little bit about, they know we're praying for them, they know we're working for them, and this gives them hope.
It was when they had given up hope, they were still prayed every day, and they asked me to join them in prayers. And when I was about to give up hope, I got a call from our mutual friend who introduced us, and we were able to help those girls, evacuate them and help get them to safety. And it was something else. I thought that they were going to die, and that or worse, they would become sex slaves. That thought was very difficult. It was I didn't know what to do, and then just the next morning, I got a call, and we were able to help them. So it was just, I think it was their prayers and that guided us and guided them to safety.
Yeah, an incredible miracle, and a lot of prayers yesterday. Big day yesterday here in Washington, D.C., Supreme Court. Let's talk about that.
I was explaining to Mustafa that really our foreign policy reflects Roe v. Wade. Abandoning Afghanistan so thoughtlessly the way we did, Joe Biden saying, no regrets. That's the fruit of Roe v. Wade. That is the fruit of Roe v. Wade. That's the fruit of denying our founding principle, the inviolable beauty and dignity of the human person. That our politicians threw that principle around to inspire Americans to go to war and to nation build. But when they wanted to leave, they forgot everything they said. And so Dobbs is about more than just protecting the child in the womb from violence. It's about uniting our nation, and it's about us once again becoming the city on the hill, because sometimes I feel like there's no city on the hill in the world anymore. There's no country for people to look up to. And Dobbs, I think, is the beginning of the United States moving towards a culture of life, and we're the hegemon. We're the most powerful country in the history of the world. How beautiful it will be when we, once and for all, truly assent without contradiction to our founding principle.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much, and well said. Thank you so much for being here and speaking with us, and thank you so much for what you two are doing. God bless you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And for more information, or if you would like to help, visit thegreatcampaign.org. They are doing wonderful, wonderful work. And we thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Good night, and God bless.